So the RTX cards launched 2 months ago. They were announced 3 months ago, and we still only have a single game that has ray tracing, which is Battlefield 5. However, it would launch to disappointing fanfare. Like, you weren't even getting 60 FPS at 1080p with ray tracing turned on, and then don't even think about 4K. Based on our averages, it's right around 20 FPS. So a disappointing card for being $1,200. But NVIDIA and DICE have announced that they have optimized it. We get better ray tracing, up to 50% better according to their claims, just from a driver update and the latest patch that came to Battlefield, which was like 13, 14 gigs. So we're gonna be testing their claims with the RTX 2080 Ti, the Gaming X Trio from MSI on the Z390 Godlike Gaming with a 9900K. And this Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro RAM, 3200 megahertz, courtesy of Corsair. Thank you guys so much for sending this over. And we have a solid system to rock here. But before we dive into today's video, I want to let you know that this video is actually brought to you by Silverstone. Silverstone's Nightjar NJ450 power supply is actually the world's first SFX fanless power supply. So that means no fans, completely passively cooled. And not only that, it has an 80+ platinum certified rating, so it's super efficient. Its SFXL form factor will make it perfect for any mini ITX system that you might have planned, including some home theater PCs, because as we all know, we don't want our PCs distracting us while we're playing video games or trying to listen to quiet parts in the movie. And this thing will stay whisper silent because, again, it has no fans in the entire thing. It is completely passively cooled, and again with that 80+ platinum certified rating, and it's rated to run 24 hours, 7 days a week, and keep a constant cool temperature. Not only that, it's completely modular, comes with high quality black flat cables so that you can route everything perfectly in that mini ITX case. It's also a gorgeous power supply in case you just want to stare at it, because that'll totally work. I would totally hang one of these on our wall. It would fit in like right here. It's a gorgeous power supply. So check it out at the link in the video description. This is Silverstone's NJ450 SXL power supply, 450 watts, 80+ platinum, completely silent, passively cooled, world's first 0 decibel power supply. Link in the video description. Check it out. Let's move on. So with all of that being interluded and introed, let's go ahead and test out their claims of what's going on. You see, we have the 9900K running at 5 gigahertz. We're currently running a few FPS in the menu. The 2080 Ti is running perfectly well. We're gonna go ahead. We have it at 1440p because that's the natural resolution of this monitor, 1440p, 144 hertz. We have everything on Ultra, everything set up that way. We're just gonna go ahead and run with 1440p because when we tested it before, we were barely getting 30 FPS at all in the game for 1440p with ray tracing on, with everything on Ultra. So we're just gonna go ahead and go to War Stories, and we're gonna test out the one that has the most fire reflections. So previously, when we tested it on the first setup with Battlefield 5, the RTX 2080 Ti was coming in at about 55 FPS with everything on Ultra at 1080p. At 1440p, it was right around the 30 to 35 mark, and then at 4K, it was right around 20 FPS. So anything higher than 30 is already a dramatic victory. If it's over 60 FPS, that's going to be solid improvements by NVIDIA and DICE, which will be super happy for all of us. Dang! Check that out. It doesn't seem like much is happening right now, but I mean, 70 FPS just right here is actually a huge difference to the way it was before. Between 60 and 70. One of the things that they mentioned that they did was that they optimized ray tracing, so they're making sure that not as many rays are hitting things that don't matter. They want to keep the same visual fidelity of ray tracing, but remove how many rays have to actually be calculated. Another thing that they mentioned was the things like the foliage that's bouncing off here, is that these were getting ray traced, but you can't really tell the difference because, like, look at, they just disappear. So they're not even the best leaves in the world anyways, but yet they were being ray traced, which was causing a huge dip to FPS. So part of it is that they've optimized the ray tracing that's going on here. Part of it is that they've actually removed some ray tracing that's happening, and that they've also worked on some of the denoising and the work of the tensor cores to make this a better experience. So mostly it looks like an improvement, but what it actually practically means is that we're getting less ray tracing in order to get this FPS. However, one of the things that I will note is that this doesn't look much different from how it was before the other patch. You can still clearly see the reflection in the water of the tree right there. Like that is perfectly clear. And then things like everything that reflects in the water, which is where the ray tracing happens in Battlefield 5. The fire's coming through perfectly fine. You can see that the reflections on the gun for the fire is actually also pretty good. And we're still right around the 80, right now 84 FPS, even though 75, 66. I haven't seen this drop below 60 just yet. And part of that is thanks to the optimizations that they're doing. Part of it is thanks to the removal of ray tracing that they've done. But overall, this is a solid experience. Okay, so this is 1440p, which that's perfectly acceptable to me. 1440p, 60 FPS, I'll take that much over 1440p, 30 FPS. So let's go ahead and downscale this to 1920 by 1080 and see what we get at that. Again, this is everything on Ultra. 85, 80, 78, We're gonna do more testing just to make sure. This is just like me showing it off preliminarily, and then we'll give you some actual benchmarks towards the end of the video. But so far, 70, 80, like that's better than the 55 that it was. It's not super enthralling at 1080p. But then again, like I don't know if I would buy a 2080 Ti to play on a 1080p monitor. So let's go ahead and try 4K and just get a glimpse at that. That is better than 20. So it's a little bit smaller, but like it's running at a solid 40 to 45 FPS. So this is like, you know, The Hobbit cinematic, 48 FPS, right? So this is Battlefield 5 directed by Peter Jackson, which is a relevant joke because he just did the World War I colorized thing. Hey. But here we go, cinematic frame rates of 42 FPS. This, I mean, dang, definitely. I think the sweet spot right now is 1440p. To be honest. So that's a fun map, but let's go ahead and go to the snow map and see if there's what kind of FPS we're getting there. Again, we're just rocking this at 1440p. We'll see what goes. Dang, look at that ray tracing, 80 FPS. Okay, so this is a completely different map. The ray tracing obviously won't be as hot and heavy as that like damp map where there's water going on everywhere, but Reece, if you want to come in here, like we're pulling up close to 80 FPS on this particular map. Some drops to the mid 60s, but Holly Holm, this is doing pretty dang decent. I don't know anything about that woman. I know she's a UFC fighter. I have no idea why I just said that, but look at those shadows. Look at the reflection in the gun. That looks good. That moonlight though. Are you aware of the conspiracy that moonlight is officially a cold laser? Yeah, so the conspiracy goes that if you like leave an object in the moonlight and then you leave an object in the shadow of the moonlight, the object in the shadow will be warmer than the object in the moonlight. The moonlight makes things colder. That's the conspiracy. Just throwing that out there. Conspiracy time with Brett. Pop. Pop, 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 pop. Yeah, 80 FPS, even with the firefight going. Solid. Rock bottom. Solid. Oh, okay, well, that's pretty dang decent. Okay, we'll do more benchmarking. We'll get back to you, and we'll let you know exactly what the current FPS is on the new patch, what it was before. We'll do some inspection. Can we see a visual fidelity difference between the previous ray tracing and the more optimized, slightly stripped down ray tracing? Just from playing the game, I can say that I haven't noticed anything at all, but we'll do some screen recording, we'll do some pixel peeping, and we'll see if we can actually find anything. Okay, we did all of the benchmarking, we've got everything set up. Well, let me run you through what's happening. So we did testing with ray tracing off, ray tracing on low, and then ray tracing on ultra to see where any performance difference comes in. With ray tracing off, all of the numbers are basically the same at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. So we're sitting at about 155 FPS at 1080p, 125 FPS at 1440p, and then about 75 FPS at 4K, again with ray tracing off. With ray tracing on low, so at 1080p, previously it was 66 FPS. Now it is 93. That is a dang good improvement. At 1440p, it was 58 FPS previously with ray tracing on low. Now it is 81. Again, massive improvement there. 4K, we went from 33.9 with ray tracing on low to 50.2. So dramatic improvements, definitely that 50% increase that they were claiming. So then we also tested with ray tracing on Ultra, which again was everything on Ultra. With the first test, it was everything on Ultra, ray tracing on low, and now it's everything on Ultra, ray tracing on Ultra. So at 1080p, everything on Ultra, including ray tracing, that was 54 FPS previously, now it's 81. Previously at 1440p, it was 35.7, and now it is 65.6. So you're getting over 60 FPS average at 1440p, and then at 4K, we went from 20.6 average to a 40.2 average, nearly 100% increase at 4K for ray tracing on Ultra. That is fantastic. So at 1080p, what we personally saw with our benchmarking is that we got a 50% on the dot increase. 81 is 50% higher than 54. And then at 1440p, we actually saw an 83% improvement. And then at 4K, we have a 95% improvement in total frame rate with ray tracing on Ultra. That is some good numbers. So obviously we're still at the beginnings of ray tracing. It's still mostly not something that you should buy an RTX card for, but kudos to DICE and NVIDIA for actually putting in the effort to make ray tracing better, to give us these huge performance jumps without lowering the visual quality that much at all, because as you can see in this side-by-side comparison, even when we pixel peep, it's not really noticeable. I don't know where the difference really is. Obviously, NVIDIA released a video talking about how they achieved this performance increase, but it's not readily discernible to people like us. Maybe a channel like Digital Foundry will come out with more information about the technical aspects of this, but for our purposes as just regular gamers, still looks good, still looks like it's ray traced, and now at 1440p, which is the native resolution of this monitor, we can guarantee that we're gonna get 60 FPS with everything on Ultra with the $1,200 graphics card. That's still the ouchie point. If this thing was a little bit cheaper, then I'd be all over this. We'll still have to wait for ray tracing to come out in other games, but hot dang, does this show that NVIDIA is actually working on this. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen with games like Metro Exodus and other games that might adopt this title in the future. However, there's still the everlasting issue of games don't really need to support it because there's very few people on the user base who have ray tracing, but it looks like those of us who do have 2080 Ti's will get to see a glorious future, especially if optimizations keep taking place like this. And again, I want to remind you that this video is brought to you by Silverstone. Don't forget to check out their power supply, the completely silent one, the NJ450SXL, at the link in the description. This is an amazing engineering feat. You guys should totally check that out. Regardless of sponsorship, that is a dope power supply. Anyways, we're gonna wrap the video up there. Let us know, are you excited for the future of ray tracing? Does the update have you hyped? Does everything that NVIDIA is bringing to the table make you feel good? Or does the price still kind of scatter your melons as far as what you really want NVIDIA to be doing right now and prioritizing? Let me know down in the comments, chat about it. Anyways, like the video if you enjoyed it, get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our tech related content. I'm Brett with the UFD Tech Channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Cheers. Why? Why? Just why? Stop! No!